15 minutes per subject. I will indicate when you have 1 minute remaining, which should give you ample time to summarize your presentation. Anybody that wishes to speak, please do so, but we do need your name and your address for our records. And if you would, give me a second to get the camera set up. I see that we have somebody that wants to speak. Okay. All right. Yes, sir. Please go right ahead.
Maine. I want to give a little backstory about why I'm here. In the last week or so, most of you guys know what I do for work. Most of you guys know that I run the Guardian. I do the news. But I'm also still a citizen here, so I still feel like I have a right to an opinion and a taxpayer. I'm going to take off my news hat for a moment and put on my citizen's hat for a moment and talk about something that came out in the last week that my publication reported on. We reported that the president of council had received about $15,000 from the city for work on city vehicles. Of course, for those of you that don't know, the president of city council owns a car repair place down on Water Street. So $15,000, according to public records, went down to his business from the city. And I just feel that that is the ultimate betrayal of trust. So I'm here tonight to have a discussion, because apparently you get more than 5 minutes if you have a discussion. So down Water Street to the council president's business. Confidence of the taxpayers here in Chiillicothe, in this body of city council. By the way, I commend you guys for being public servants, but there's a difference between that, and I'll get to that in a second. But confidence of the taxpayers here, it's certain to falter when we start abusing our positions and accepting money from the government that we have fiduciary responsibilities to represent. The disbursement of tax money for self-serving ways is illegal. There are state laws against it. Checks and balances exist. Quite literally, the checks flow down to the city auditor's office, and for good reason. When the mayor was asked last week, what's your opinion on this? What happened? Can you explain to us? He just said, we'll get back to you. But the problem is, at that point, the checks were already cashed. They were already in Bruce Arnold's bank account. Is he going to write the checks back? I don't know. Hopefully, he'll do the right thing and refund the city the $15,000. One could argue that the work had to be done, so why does it matter? Maybe he's the cheapest in town. Maybe that's the case. It matters because it's illegal. The state legislature has put laws in place for a reason. It's against the law. It's a disgrace. 15 rounds of Narcan. That's 215 lives that could have been saved. Half of our police force right now lack legal, certified, in good standing CPR training. They're expired. They have no CPR cards. They cannot do CPR training right now if they wanted to. Well, they could do it, but it wouldn't be necessarily certified. 333 CPR training classes, 8 times over. It would have bought, by the way, we don't have AED defibrillators in the cruisers. It would have bought every cruiser an AED defibrillator. So as I was saying earlier, there's a difference between holding elective office and being a public servant. Many people have failed citizens here with this illegal abuse of taxpayers. There's supposed to be checks and balances. Now, I'm not one to complain without offering solutions, but the solutions are already in place here. There's a state law in place that says this is illegal. It happened anyway. So I'm a little relieved to learn that when I spoke to the Ohio Ethics Commission last week, as well as the county prosecutor, that both are reviewing it and both are taking it very seriously. Now, let me be clear. Ethics violations are criminal violations. Those are criminal charges. First-degree misdemeanors, felonies in some cases, if the amount is the right amount of money. The president claimed in his goodbye speech a few minutes ago that voters are not enough people vote. More people watch the Super Bowl than go to the ballot box. I wish more people would vote. But for those that did show up to the ballot box in November, they sent a message that they weren't satisfied with the way things were being done. And so I have faith in the voting body. I don't think they're uninformed, and I don't think they lack the knowledge, as the president said in his speech. And hopefully somebody will be doing the right thing and writing a check back to the city for the $15,000. I know I'll be in court during the court arraignment if there's criminal charges, which I imagine there will be. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Myers. I'm sorry, Mr. Prohl. Yes.
I'd just like to make a point that the money spent at the CARS business was to upgrade police vehicles. No matter where we had that work done, it would have cost a similar amount or possibly more. To argue that that money is some or resuscitation devices out of our police cruisers is a bit of fantasy. Those things might be nice to have in all of our cruisers, but that money was spent as we would have spent it at any institution. So regardless of your argument about ethics, I think you're being a little unethical by trying to make this into an argument that it's not. This isn't about us not providing safety materials for our public. We have a professional fire department, for one thing, and a lot of communities don't have that. Our police department does a fine job, and to cast aspersions at them, I think, is unfair. To cast aspersions at this council saying that we somehow don't care because we weren't placing items in the vehicles, well, there's fair enough. You can argue that we could always do more, but let's be realistic. That money was going to be going towards updating the cruisers, striping the cruisers, things like that we were going to do regardless. Whenever we buy a new vehicle, it has to be made ready for street use. And that's what $15,000 or whatever amount, that's what that money's for. And again, I just think it's kind of some grandstanding when you get up in front of the committee here and start saying that, you know, this money could have been spent for something else. Well, a lot of money could be spent for something else. There's a lot of times I would like to see a cut here or a cut there, but that's nothing to do with what your allegations that you've concocted. So you can, you know, just kind of, when you're reporting that, make sure you know that that money was to upgrade cruisers and that we were not taking money away from people that definitely need help, because that's safety in this city has always been one of my priorities, and I believe the priority of the people on council to make sure that people of Chiillicothe are safe from, you know, whether it be accidents or this drug epidemic. And as you can see on our agenda tonight, we're taking this drug epidemic seriously, and I think we, you know, can all agree on that. So I just want to bring that clear, because I think it's kind of, you know, when you get up there and say, well, you guys could have done this with the money, you could have done that. No, that money was going to go for what it was going to go for, no matter who we're spending it with. We have to have our cruisers street ready. And, you know, if we need to put additional things in there, that's something we can do in time. But I do want to point out that our firefighters, which you left out of the mix, do a fine job. And they're very dedicated to trying to save lives. And we do make sure that they have the equipment that they need in their vehicles as well. So that concludes my comments.
Thank you, Mr. Prohl. Do we have anybody else in the audience this evening that would like to address council? Anybody? No? Okay. We'll move on to old business. Does anybody have any old business they'd like to bring up? Not seeing any. Petitions and correspondence received by the clerk.
We haven't received anything since the last meeting, President Arnold, but I would like to make an announcement if I could, please. I would like to formally announce my resignation from my position as interim clerk of council for the city of Chiillicothe, effective December 31st, 2021. I was appointed during a time of need and feel with the new term coming in that this is the best time for someone else to step in and have the experience of serving the community. I've truly enjoyed doing this. Thank you for letting me do it for as long as I have, but I'm offering my assistance to whoever becomes appointed to take the role and make it as smooth of a transition as possible. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Fleckner. And I don't know what to say to that, actually. So moving on, we will move on to new business. Does anybody have any new business they'd like to bring up, please? Yes, Mr. Prohl.
In light of her request to resign, I want to say a big thank you from all of us here at council. The work that you have done, no one sees, and you know we got all of our messages in time and questions answered, and And you stepped up and did a tough job that scared a lot of people off. And you rose to the challenge and exceeded all expectations. And we want to thank you for your service.
And I'll echo that again, since I've already said that. She has done a fantastic job. So thank you very much. Any other new business that anybody would like to say or bring up? Yes, Mr. Farrow.
When would be the appropriate time to ask a couple questions about some of the legislation on the agenda? Probably when it's read, or
No,
right
right now's fine.
Okay.
Or when the reports were going. Go ahead.
all right. I just got. I don't know if Auditor Spetnagel could answer this for the city council on the budget. Where like the 281, I know it's like $600 less than if the legislation passed tonight. Where's the 281 come from? Is it like an average, or it's like for personal services for the wages? I'm assuming it's like budgeted for like 281,000.
Are you talking about like a certain department or?
Yeah, for city council. I didn't know if that was reflecting off of if this
Yes,
item
that's
passed.
that. Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else, Mr. Farrell? No? Okay. All right. Any other comments before we move on? I don't have any committee assignments that anybody's brought forth. Meeting dates. I have one committee assignment that has been brought forth since our last meeting, and that is 2 safety services. And that's request for legislation to establish a pay rate of $28.50 per hour for a temporary part-time deputy clerk for the municipal court. And that's the only assignment that has been made since our last meeting. No meeting dates. I guess January 3rd will be the next meeting that Mr. Feeney will be calling. With that, we will move on to our legislation this evening. And Ms. Fleckner, whenever you're ready, we'll start out with item number 1.
Third reading of an ordinance amending section 111.01, 111.10, 114.01, 116.01, 118.01, and 120.01 of the codified ordinances of the City of Chiillicothe regarding pay provisions for elected officials and declaring an emergency.
That's the third read, so we'll have roll call on that legislation.
Nickerson? Yes. Tatman? Yes. Gillum?
Yes.
Farrow? Yes. Corcoran?
Yes.
And Prohl.
Yes.
And that item has passed. Item number 2.
Third reading of an ordinance consenting to the proposal submitted by the Ohio Department of Transportation for the resurfacing project at State Route 772 within the corporation limits of the City of Chiillicothe and declaring an emergency.
Again, third reading. We'll have a roll call on the legislation.
Nickerson? Yes. Tatman? Yes. Gillum?
Yes.
Farrow? Yes. Corcoran?
Yes.
And Prohl.
Yes.
And that has passed. Ordinance. And again, another third reading. Item number 3.
Third reading of an ordinance appropriating $200,000 for use toward the purchase of a trolley for the Transit Department.
And roll call on that legislation.
Nickerson?
Yes.
Tatman? Yes. Gillum?
Yes.
Farrow? No. Corcoran?
Yes.
And Prohl.
Yes.
Okay. And that's 5-4, and that has passed. And that did not have emergency language, so it has passed appropriately. Moving on to item number 4.
Second reading of a resolution approving the city's participation in Ohio opioid settlement agreements, including the Janssen opioid settlement with opioid distributor Johnson & Johnson, Janssen Pharmaceuticals, Inc., Ortho McNeil Janssen Pharmaceuticals, Inc., and Janssen Pharmaceutica, Inc., collectively Janssen, and declaring an emergency.
And that'll move on to the next meeting. And last, item number 5.
First reading of an ordinance to make appropriation for current expenses and other expenditures of the City of Chiillicothe, State of Ohio, during fiscal year beginning January 1, 2022 and ending December 31, 2022, and declaring an emergency.
And that item will move on again to our next meeting. Yes, Ms. Corcoran?
Yes, President Arnold, I would like to go into an executive session to discuss union negotiations.
I have a motion to go into executive session, seconded by Ms. Gillum. Roll call on the motion to go into executive session.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Tatman, Gillum,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
and Prohl.
Before we go in and before people that may tune out, I'd like to wish everybody a happy new year, okay? All right. We're in executive section, folks. Everybody turn their mics off. All right, everybody. We have had our executive session. You'll have a motion to bring us back into council and come out of executive session. By Mr. Prohl, seconded by Mr. Tatman. Roll call on the motion to come out of executive session.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Tatman,
Yes.
Gillum,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
and Prohl.
Yes.
We are now out of executive session. Unless anybody has anything they'd like to add, do I have a motion for adjournment? By Ms. Nickerson, seconded by Mr. Tatman. Roll call on the motion for adjournment.
Nickerson,
Yes.
Tatman, Gillum,
Yes.
Farrow,
Yes.
Corcoran,
Yes.
and Prohl.
Yes.
We're now adjourned. I'll quickly say thank you, all council members again, Ms. Fleckner, Mayor Feeney, Mrs. Spetnagel, and everybody I've worked with. It's been a true pleasure, and I appreciate the opportunity, and I'll still see you all. Take care, and Happy New Year.